This video is going to talk about something that we cover at the beginning of chapter 2. It's called the distinction between positive economics and normative economics. This has been a really important distinction for economists to make. It's been something that's allowed economists as a group to make a lot of progress in our research over the years. So what's the difference and why is it so important? Well, I have the definitions up here. I hope you can see them. They're the same ones as we have out of the book. A positive statement, in short, is that's a statement that can be tested or validated. It can be thought of as a what is statement about the world. So positive statements would be statements or claims of facts, including a factual claim that could be incorrect. So if you think of a statement like, oh, the moon is made of green cheese. Now that's a positive statement. It's a statement of fact. It can be tested to validate whether it's true or not. And in that case, it turns out to not be true. But a false statement is still a true-false statement. So there's also questions about what is in the world. And then, when we get into economics, it would be, questions about measuring the status of the economy. Question like, what is the current unemployment rate? Or the current unemployment rate is lower than it was a year ago. That's, can be tested and validated to either be true or false. Statements about cause and effect would also be testable. So positive economics are statements related to fact, things that can ultimately be verified, proven to, most often be proven to be false. We can't always prove something's true, but we can show that nothing it contradicts it. So factual statements about the world. Normative statements or normative economics deals with opinions. And opinions can't be tested or validated in the same fashion. So if we say, I think that the rich should pay a higher share of taxes, that's a values statement. It's a statement about whether you think what you think the proper distribution of taxes across individuals would be. If you would say, I think that the minimum wage is a bad policy, that again is a normative statement. You can't easily test those. You can't test those statements and come up with whether they be true or not. Another way of thinking about it is people can have differences of opinion, and if you have differences of opinion, then then there's no way to show that one person's opinion about values is true and somebody else's values are false. Another way to think about it is normative statements are statements about what ought to be in the world. Now, you'll see questions about normative and positive, the difference here on the quizzes and exams. There's different ways that they could be asked. One of which could be we have simply a question about the definition, or what are each of these definitions about. Another way we like to ask a question that would be related on this would be to ask a question like, which of the following is a positive statement? And then it can be a multiple choice question, and you've got different statements that follow. And if you have like 5 answers there, well, one of them is going to be positive and the other 4 would be normative because only one of them can be a correct answer. And you have to identify which one's positive and which one's normative. So there are different ways we could test about this. We could either test you directly about, do you remember the definition, or a question about the definition, or see if you can apply the definition and distinguish whether different statements are positive or normative. Now, in economics, we're going to talk a lot about efficiency. And this is something that's worth talking about a little bit here. Efficiency, we're going to make statements about efficiency. It's going to sound as if this is a positive, this is positive economics. But it's really, efficiency is ultimately a value. And so when we say that the equilibrium is efficient, a statement you'll hear a number of times, or then sometimes when we say something like, oh, price controls are inefficient. We are evaluating economic outcomes based on our criteria of efficiency. I'm not going to try to define what efficiency is here. We'll get the definitions of that as we go through the course. Just previewing here, we're going to hear economists talk a lot about efficiency. It is ultimately a normative evaluation, because efficiency is one way to think about it. Is efficiency is a performance criteria that we apply, that economists like to apply to economies. Think of like performance criteria that you might want to apply to computers or cars. They like to say, like, oh, I like a car with great acceleration. Well, ultimately, great acceleration, or I value great acceleration in a car, is an opinion. Cars that can accelerate fast are good. I mean, that's ultimately a normative or an opinion-based evaluation. Efficiency is going to be, because it's a performance criteria, the question of whether efficiency truly is a relevant performance criteria or not is debatable. That's an opinion. Now, what we are going to be able to do, and why economists like efficiency as a normative criteria or performance criteria to apply for economies, is that we can give it a very specific and concrete definition. And so that's what allows us to many times say the equilibrium in this model is efficient, or the equilibrium in this model is not efficient. And that part of the statement is like positive. That's something to be verified to either be true or false. But whether efficiency as a performance criteria is something that we should value or actually care about is up for grabs, or that's an opinion. Alternatively, many people would look and say equity is an alternative performance measure for an economy, and say, I don't care that the economy is efficient. It's more important to me that the economy be equitable. Now, that's a statement about values or opinions. And so, there you can sort of see whether efficiency matters or not is ultimately normative. Now, we can do a lot of analysis to determine whether efficiency applies, but that's because we can give it a very specific definition. In big picture, I said is this distinction between positive and normative was very important for economics, because over the last 100 or 150 years that economics has been a discipline, one of the important things that especially set the stage beginning about 100 years ago for economics to make a lot of progress, was that economists learned to distinguish between what was positive and what was normative, what were statements of fact about the world, and then what were ultimately opinions. And we chose as a profession to focus on the positive, focus on the stuff that could be validated or proven to, or be demonstrated to be false. And we try not to worry too much or argue or spend all of our time arguing about opinions, because if you can't validate the opinions, then you could be having the same argument about values that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 50 or 100 years from now. But if you are testing and trying to see what is true or what isn't true about the world, how does cause and effect work? And if you stay focused on the positive elements of economics, we as a profession have been able to make a lot more progress. Another thing that this means is that when we talk about, in this class, I will certainly try to, and I think economists, when they talk about policy generally, should always be clear whenever they're making a normative evaluation. Because normative evaluations are different from positive. Our expertise in economics is ultimately about these positive questions, these questions about fact, about how does the economy work? Does a higher minimum wage actually reduce the number of jobs available at low-paying jobs available? Those positive, true or false, factual questions about how the economy operates. If we do apply values, we try to be explicit about that. And so in this class, we're going to focus, I hopeful as an instructor, I hopefully will be clear anytime we make a normative evaluation, and try to avoid making normative evaluations, other than the fact that once we define efficiency, we are often going to talk about what is efficient or what isn't efficient. That is a type of normative argument, and it's but I'm warning you that that's normative, and ultimately You can care or not care about whether the economy, whether efficiency is an important performance metric for economies or not. But positive economics versus normative economics is an important distinction, an important concept that you want to remember for this class.